Hi everyone, this is Chen Benasher, your board certified nutritionist, and today's topic I'm going to cover the emotional part or coping with the emotional part involved with a gluten-free diet, which is kind of surprised because a lot of us, when we are going on a gluten-free diet, we're not sure and we don't know that it's involving also some kind or some part of emotion changes and adoption and adjusting. This is the process I'm working with so many of individuals through the years, changing their diet from gluten to gluten free. Most individuals, when they are discovering that they need to be on a gluten free diet, this is after years of struggling, trying to identify and understand what basically is going on with them, and all those unexplained symptoms and feeling of miserable and being sick that no one was able to discover. And also those individuals that are going gluten free, many times when they come to me, they don't do it well and right. Therefore, they do not recover well from being so miserable and sick. So they do improve a bit, but not completely. And and the frustration is another emotional presentation that people will experience even when they are shifting from gluten to gluten-free diet, thinking that they do well or thinking they're doing good enough to support themselves. So for many, it will be kind of like a shock discovery. And for many people, it feels like, oh my God, someone tossed into my face like a load of bricks. And for others, it will come through them and they will develop some kind of denial, guilt, worry, and even grief, which is part of the process while people are dealing with the first couple of weeks uh, discovering the fact that they are gluten free. And you have to remember that coping with the challenges of transforming ourselves from eating everything to gluten free, it's a challenge by itself. And personally, I can say that it took me about almost 8 months to be completely gluten free. Not just that I struggled with the temptation to eat, food and being exposed myself to regular bread and food because I had to keep up feeding my kids or my husband, and I kept uh, feeding them with bread and easy to go solution. But also, the challenge is that we have to remember that when we are going through that, we have to allow ourselves and we need to permit the expression of the emotions that are coming involved with this notification and this kind of like discovery, even if it's positive, meaning, oh my God, finally I understand what's happening and here's the relief that I was looking for, or the negative expression where we're getting frustrated and angry and guilty and worried, and we are grieving about that loss. And one of the things that I can share with you is that the conjunction of holidays and family and social gathering, these are the point for many, at least at the beginning of the process, that is challenging us dramatically and rising up the emotional portion of shifting from a regular diet to gluten-free diet if you do that correctly. And studies are also showing that 46% of the responses in this particular study that people are saying that being on a gluten-free diet because of medical reason is limiting their social life. And this is by itself a grief. Put aside COVID-19. Yes, that was a limitation by itself. But now that everything is coming up and open up, we want to gather, we want to be socializing. So it's not something that we want to keep that. And I would never ask anyone on earth to limit his social life on a gluten-free diet. The opposite. I'm always telling to all my clients, go outside, go and gather, go to friends, go to parties, learn while I'm with you what you can do better so you can experience that and follow that for the rest of your lives, limit the potential risk of being exposed to gluten and get sick. And so, yes, 46% is a lot. It's almost half of the population on gluten-free diet will state that. And so you want to shift your mind and you want to make sure that you know what to do on these gatherings so you are crossing it safely without challenges. Another study found out that 55% of the people that are gluten free because of medical reason are feeling so embarrassed being gluten free and also notify their friends and family of their need to be gluten free. And I understand that. No one wants to say, I have that and that disease, right? We don't go and we say, hey, I have high blood pressure, take off the salt, or I have blood sugar, cut off the sugar out of the dish, right? We don't say that. But food in this case can make us sicker aggressively and activating an immune response that lasts for 6 months. And 6 months is a lot of time. So not just that it takes 6 months to slow down the antibody production, but it takes also 6 months to fire it up again. So you can do perfectly fine for a couple of good weeks and months, and then you come across gluten and you fire the whole system and you're creating what I call unresolved tissue repair, and you're constantly creating ongoing tissue deterioration that just kind of like as a ripple in kind of like a ripple effect affect more and more and more tissues. And this is one of the challenges because gluten or celiac is basically an autoimmune disease where we do see tissues that are destructed, but not just in one side. That's autoimmune disease where there is a trigger that affects more than one tissue, and the tissues are basically destructed by themselves. So you want to keep that in mind that it's not just being embarrassed, it's also the fact that it takes 6 months to solve this mechanism, but one bite can fire that mechanism for another 6 months. So it's always knowing what you need to know and support yourself accordingly so you don't fire this mechanism and keep up for 6 months this issue, this deterioration. Studies are showing that 33% of the subjects are telling that family and friends do not understand what that means to be on a gluten-free diet. And that is so true. You know, you go to an event and you say, hey, I'm gluten-free diet, and then they provide you a food that you cannot eat. And you cannot eat it even though it says gluten-free because you are very special in your presentation. This is one of the biggest things that people are completely not realizing, including family members. So many people will go to family reunions and dinners and holiday meals, and still the host will do and take the efforts to do a gluten-free product or dish, and it does not apply to you. And you feel uncomfortable because you made someone to do something out of its comfort zone, and still you can find yourself in a very dangerous situation. So, yes, I would agree with that. And we need to educate our family members and friends and make sure that we are supporting ourselves. And one of the things that I'm always telling my clients is make sure that you are bringing with you at least one dish that you know that is safe for you. You are not hungry when you come to this place, and you can support yourself. And I will always say, eat something before you leave the house, so you have more control. Because when we are hungry, and the smells are, kind of like generating more brain response to it, we can lose the control, and we can activate this 6 months line of responses, which we definitely don't want to. So the emotional part involved with that, like the embarrassing, the fact that you have to educate everyone, the fact that people are not understanding you completely, not just that can make it challenge by itself, but also makes us being prone to keep the diet as is. So a lot of times we'll see people that are needing to be on a gluten-free diet, but the moment they can take off, they take off. And then a couple of months after, they find themselves with thyroid issue and joint pain and brain functionality that is deteriorating. And it's a loop that feeds itself. And it's not a loop that there is a cure for it. That's the thing. We don't have a cure for celiac, because you're activating immune response, and you have to shut down the immune response. And you have to make sure that your immune system is not responding that aggressively to the point that you are creating tissue deterioration wherever it is. And every one of us is different. We do know that during holiday times, people will respond and will say, and about 20%, they will say that they will eat intentionally gluten. So they know they should not. They know what it is, and still they cannot resist the gluten presented on the table. And again, I understand it took me 8 months to say to myself, yes, I'm slicing a slice of bread for my kids for school or for my husband, but I'm not eating it. And it took me that time to make sure that I'm differentiating my utilities in the kitchen, so I'm not getting exposed to that. Because we know from study that even a grain of a bread, a crumb of a bread, can create immune response. So it's not how much you're eating, it's the fact that you're eating it. And that's why I'm saying always, it's not what you avoid eating, it's what you are eating. And if you're eating a bite of a gluten and you're activating this immune response, now you lost 6 months of repair, tissue repair. And that's something that is, for me, it's kind of like, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to invite more destruction in the system where you can help yourself by bringing your own dish to that event? And then 13% of gluten-free responded said that they will eat gluten food once a month, which is a paradox in my opinion, because it doesn't matter if you eat once a month or once a year, you activating the same immune response that lasts that long. It's just that you just pushing it longer in the line, and the recovery is so much more longer and painful and expensive. And in the end of the day, in autoimmune disease, what we do see is cluster of diseases. So it's not just celiac, it's celiac and other more diseases. And people come to me with 10 different diagnoses. And the paradox here is that if they started avoiding gluten years before, they wouldn't take themselves and become so miserable at that particular moment when they come. And we're spending so much time and money on enjoying the wrong food. And we're so lucky because the gluten-free industry is thriving compared to 5 years ago and 3 years ago. And there is so many options there for us. And it's kind of like, why not to apply that? And specifically during the holidays where we are heading into, and just making ourselves safe and not challenging ourselves with cheating on a gluten-free diet. Because as we cheating, we are activating this immune response, and that is absolutely not making us any happier whatsoever. Now, when we're talking about the emotional experiences, what is very common in across all of the clients that I'm working with is that some of them will be a feeling of isolation and exclusion. And the reason is they cannot go, or they think they cannot go to restaurants, and they cannot join a family gathering because they don't understand what does it mean, and they cannot use and go to co-workers parties and friends parties. And the truth here is that you should not isolate yourself. You want to experience that. You want to make sure that you are absolutely finding the right restaurants. You are finding the right dishes to bring and share with others, and educate your family members. I don't know any mother or on earth or any aunt or uncle that will on purpose cook a meal to poison us, right? I don't think that's the case. It's just that if there is a need for another explanation, then that's what it will be. And I can tell you when I started, when I came to visit my mom in Israel, she gave me the rice cracker because she thought it's gluten free, right? And I cannot do that. If I do that, oh my God, I can end up in the hospital. And she didn't know that. And so I educated her, and then we looked for another solution. And we did found at that time the buckwheat pita in Israel. And that was great. And she was happy and I was happy, but she was much more happy that she could serve me safely and serve me in a way that I can keep being healthy and enjoy my visit with her. So it's kind of like, what do you feel with yourself? So if you're in the denial stage, or are you accepting it and you just kind of like in a place where you are telling yourself that you did the right thing, that this is your solution in the end of the day? Other things that I see a lot is the fear of being glutenate. And I can share with you, I just flew to my son's wedding a week ago, and we got on the plane a salad, which looks perfectly fine. But when I opened it, there was dairy and bacon with that I didn't know if it's gluten free or not. And I think I saw gluten crumb, like bread crumbs. So I closed that and I said, no. And I did say that to my husband. I'm so scared to even try taking a bite here. So I will get that wave of itchiness that I'm struggling when I'm eating the wrong food. And when I'm eating the wrong food, I am suffering. So being afraid to be glutenate is absolutely a normal response. And I can say, I'm going through that. I'm sharing that. I am experiencing that. It's not worse. But when I'm fearful for myself, it's come from protection. It's come from understanding that if I get into this bite, I'm activating 6 months of immune response that I want to avoid. And that's the difference. When you understand clearly what is the mechanism and you train yourself well, you can be making better choices for yourself and crossing those challenges. Luckily, on this airplane, I took my food, and yes, I saw the salad. Yes, I smelled the salad dressing. Yes, I was tempting, but I was so proud of myself closing it and went back to my bag and eating my food. And I was really proud of myself because otherwise, I'm telling you right now, I would not be talking to you at this point for sure. So, this is another thing that is really important to realize, that being safe means being healthy. And being healthy means that I can thrive and keep doing more in my life rather than being miserable, sitting in the bed and just kind of like pray for this unpleasant symptoms to end. Another thing that I do see is that a lot of people are feeling kind of like exhausting, searching for the right food or the right restaurant or the right product. it's so much easy to go to your grocery store and just buy whatever you want, right? And then they change the product shelf location and you don't know where to find it. And it's kind of like, oh, again, I need to read the labels. This is exhausting. That is true. And we have to find better solutions for ourselves. But what I learned is use Amazon. That's what I do. So if I found a good product for myself that I don't have to bother, and other supermarket and other groceries are changing all the time the shelf products for me, I'll go Amazon and I'll buy that there. And again, I'm not a favorite of any company, but if this is what keeps me safe, then this is what keeps me safe. And I work with things that works for me and things that are safe for me because every other option is worse. So keep that in mind. Yes, it is require a learning curve. Yes, it takes time to learn, but once you apply that and it works for you, keep doing that. Don't play with that and just kind of like keep safe, stay self. That's the most important thing. And this kind of like an exhaustion explanation and education, it's also interesting, was found as one of the obstacle for adult gluten-free people when they interact with coworkers. So with coworkers, a lot of times we feel uncomfortable and embarrassed to share my story, right? Why do I need to go with you to a restaurant where I don't have safe food for myself? Or do you as a group need to compromise because of my need? And I can share with you that I worked in the past in Burlingame in California in a medical doctor office, and they went to a Japanese restaurant. And I knew that nothing in this restaurant will fit my diet. So I carried with me the salad, and I asked a permission with the restaurant owner to eat my own food on their table while the others were ordering their own food. Worked. I got the permission. I kept myself safe. So yes, I understand that the uncomfortable, the embarrassment, sharing all this information with coworkers, our bosses, absolutely can be an obstacle. But at the same time, if you're strong enough and you know what can help you and support you, I believe that others will be able to cope with that in a different manner and in much more positive way, accepting the challenges, and will continue to support you because they care about you. You just don't know that they care about you. And if they don't care about you, don't sit with them in any restaurant. That's simple as I can say to you, right? That's my way of thinking. Another interesting thing is with teenagers that are gluten free and they are having like struggling of identification time in their process, and being different food wise is also an obstacle. So this is where the parents education needs to come in. And I know that also from firsthand with my kids, when we needed to put them on gluten-free diet as well, they weren't happy with that for sure, but they had to learn the hard way. And the moment they learned, they were able to stand up for themselves. And it's a good lesson by itself. I believe so. So we have to remember that we need, first of all, to accept the fact that this is a chronic condition. It's not something that you take a pill or change your diet and magically it's occurring and we can kind of like build up a new diet for ourselves. It's an ongoing daily struggle in that sense that if you eat the wrong food, your body will respond to it. And the other thing to say here is that we have to remember that even though we are all sharing gluten-free diet, the gluten-free diet that I chose or doing for myself is different from anyone else there. Yes, we are avoiding gluten, but there are always other substances that need to be avoided. And as someone said in the past, no one diet fits all, right? And specifically on gluten-free diet, because even though, gluten, quinoa can be, is not a gluten-free, the peptides, different peptides can trigger and bind to those peptides and creating immune response. And this is the reason why you want to work with a practitioner that understands perfectly what are the other peptides that can trigger the other immune response, binding with the gliadin, which is a key peptide that creating that immunity response. So one of the things here is that you want to make sure that you understand clearly in what way your body is responding to this peptide and support accordingly, because waving out of your diet just gluten in most cases is not enough to heal those tissues that had been destructed. And now you come to Christmas meal, and yes, they took off the gluten and they cook with dairy, and you're on fire. And you activated another 6 months of immune response, which equally bad as if you were eating gluten in that sense. So when we are looking at the process, one of the things that I'm always asking people after they're going through the notification and the discovery that they cannot have gluten in their diet, are they grateful? Are they grateful from the discovery that they are either celiac or gluten sensitive? Because one of the things about that is that celiac or gluten sensitivity is not a terminal disease. And the solution is food. And that's the key to remember. So if you shift your mind and if you make those changes, you can cross them so much easily and so much more safely. And as all statements said, food can be your medicine and medicine can be your food, right? So keep that in mind, because in the end of the day, if you're grateful for the process and you're grateful for the fact that you discovered what makes you so miserable and so sick, you can absolutely support yourself and others as well, right? So education is a big deal. So not just that you want to be educated, you want to educate your loved one and your family member, like I did with my mom and my sister. And just like know that your health is beyond any embarrassment, and your health should be the primary reason why you're doing what you're doing. And you want to remember that you want to celebrate in creating every day a new dish and safe dish that makes you so much more healthy and thus so much fulfilling your mission in life. Because in the end of the day, being sick, it's not fun. That's what I can tell you. And life on a gluten-free diet is an amazing journey in my point. So just keep it, do it, smile to the world. And with my experience, if you smile to the world will smile back to you. And definitely on a gluten-free diet, it will smile even better. And what I want to wish all of you, especially looking forward into Christmas and our Christmas dinner with our family, is happy holidays. Whatever you are celebrating this year, just keep it safe. Keep it safe. So 2022 will be so much more healthier for you and much more safer, because the challenges are just ahead of us, and we will have to deal with that as well. Have a wonderful holidays. Take care.